Just crank this out because I hunger.
You have to cook, actually.
Yeah. Our fresh direct arrives later, so we might just eat out, even though we just ate out last night because the.
I have to cook a Blue Apron, or else Amanda won't have dinner tomorrow.
Nah.
Some...
All right, stream looks good. Got my opening bit, so I'm gonna hit record.
Click.
All right. It's Thursday, September 28th, 2023. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are reviewing Janelle Monáe's The Age of Pleasure tour, as we saw at Radio City. So the other night, we were hungry and busy, and we decided we should order some pizza, like you do. It's New York City. A lot of options for pizza, and we have like 3 or 4 places that we tend to rotate through that we know have good pizza or good kinds of pizza we like.
Like rotate? Wouldn't one of them just be the best one?
I mean, like if I want a Sicilian style, we go order from Rizzo's. If I want like a fancy boutique pizza, we go to Milk Flour. Like those are 2 different kinds of pizza.
Delivers to you, huh? All right.
Oh yeah, it does. It's a problem actually that they deliver here. It's a big problem. That's a real easy lunch.
I thought they'd be far away for you to reach them, but
yeah, for whatever reason they deliver to us, and I'm not going to complain about that. It arrives crazy hot. So I decide, I just look. Let's see if there's anything that delivers that I don't remember, like something new. And I go into the old group hoob.
Oh, danger.
Yeah, just to see. And I see that not too far away is a place that is definitely new that I've never seen before. They're called Detroit Pizza Works.
Well, that doesn't sound good at all.
Now, that sounds great for me in that...
in New York. Why are you... First of all, you're in New York. You're literally in New York City, living there. Why the hell would you want literally any city that's not New York pizza?
Honestly,
right?
You're weird about this. I like Chicago-style pizza.
California Pizza Kitchen opening up in New York. It's like that.
But there's no such thing as California pizza. There's no...
I know, but I'm just saying.
I mean, California pizza, the style is just bad pizza. It's not...
Literally every place on the entire face of the earth that has pizza places, they call them... They'll call their place New York Pizza, even if it's not New York Pizza at all. But there are places called New York Pizza in basically every pizza-eating country on the earth. Yet... Why? So if you're actually in real New York with real New York pizza, there is no reason.
Because I don't always want a New York style pizza. I like a Chicago style pizza. In fact, I even like the extremist form of Chicago style pizza, the one where...
I was in Chicago so briefly, I was not able to eat the thing which may be delicious. It looks delicious, but...
I would argue, I agree with you that...
Semantically not be accurate.
I agree with you that calling Chicago-style pizza, especially the most extreme form of it, that's basically just like a 3-inch thick casserole with a top, like the crust goes around the bottom and over the top.
Yeah.
I don't think calling that pizza makes sense, but regardless, Detroit-style pizza is a distinct style of pizza that I do enjoy. I like it. It's got some attributes, but... You could make good and bad Detroit-style pizza. You wouldn't even have to call it Detroit. That's just the place that kind of was popular for a lot of reasons. But anyway, I think, Detroit-style pizza. Because on that Century I did a while ago, I bumped into a bunch of people who were biking up near Poughkeepsie on the train home, and a couple of them were from Detroit, and they told me about a place down by the village called Lions, Tigers, and Squares that sells just Detroit-style pizza and is Detroit themed around the Detroit sports teams. There's like a whole thing going on. And I asked him, like...
I guess as a Detroit person who moved to New York for some reason.
Yeah. So they got a bunch of Red Wings shit all over the walls and
Detroit
Tigers
so
and...
Why? I guess, do they really love Detroit that much if they're living here?
I mean, I love Detroit, but I want to live in New York.
There are like people like that. Like any city you go to, you'll always find like these people who are from somewhere else and like express, love and
yeah, the old country. Like I grew the family from Sicily with the pizza.
Where they're from, right? And it's like, all right, I see that, but it's like if you really like where you're from, why are you not,
Well, some people are refugees. Like say you really like
that's a real reason. Yeah. I'm talking about, the people who don't appear to have a real reason.
Or what if you like Detroit, but there ain't no jobs there because of capitalism?
I mean,
you and I are in New York for a lot of reasons.
I feel like, though, if New York Detroited and Detroit New Yorked, that I'd stay in New York, even if it was Detroity.
It would depend. It would really depend. The problem is New York is unique. You know, that whole Alpha Global City thing. Only London and New York are in that category.
Yeah, that's why it's better.
Yeah, but because New York has a subway system. Like, nobody has this. Anyway, so I wonder if it's a thing like that. But I also am cautious because as my reputation precedes me among our friends and for listeners of this, the listener of this show, I am cynical, jaded, and pessimistic, and cautious. I am willing to bail at the drop of a hat on anything. I don't trust anything I see on the internet. So I think, all right, let's make sure this isn't a ghost kitchen because a lot of restaurants on Grubhub are ghost kitchens. And so I type Detroit pizza
like that. Especially since I haven't seen it. It's I haven't seen the storefront. I would bet ghost kitchen.
Oh yeah, so I type it into Google Maps and there are no results. In fact, all it recommends is that Lions, Tigers, and Squares place in the Village. So all right, so I give them the benefit of the doubt and I decide, what if they're just brand new? So I actually look at the address that's registered in Grubhub.
That's gonna tell you exactly what it is, right?
Yeah.
Even, like the diner by the way, the diner that's a block away from us that was just on Kitchen Nightmares.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the episode. I'm going to try to see it because I don't hate that show. But, even if I hated the show, I'd probably still watch the episode about the diner a block away from us that we've eaten at many times.
Yeah.
But anyway, even them, they operate like 100 ghost kitchen entries, right? But they all use the same address, so you know exactly that it's them.
There's a ton of ghost kitchens that have an address that's basically a parking lot kind of under the Queensboro Bridge. And if you sort Grubhub by distance from you, you see a lot of really cagey shit. So I look on Google Maps, I go to the address, and it's kind of by the Astoria Kaufman Theaters. And I'm thinking, there's no pizza place there. Like, did a pizza place?
There's there's literally the.
Well, no, there's pizza places I knew about there who I was confident.
There's Saks that's underneath, right?
Yep.
Literally. Right
so, but I guess I couldn't think of a pizza place
a few blocks away.
Like a pizza place would go that didn't already have a pizza place that I was pretty sure didn't go out of business since the last time I was over there.
But the point is, yes, I know that area. I know the pizza places that are near that area. There are a few, and none of them are Detroit pizza.
And I feel like I would have noticed the last time I was over there, like something
there recently.
Yep. So then I do the old Google Street View, and I drop my little yellow guy in the Google Street View, and what do I fucking see at that address? A Pizzeria Uno.
Yeah, it's the one next to the Applebee's.
Yep, it's the one next to the Applebee's.
Literally, Astoria is interesting in that, like, all of Astoria, we don't really have, like, there's a couple McDonald's.
Yeah.
And
like even Wildwood has like the
some
McDonald's.
Dunkin' Donuts is, right? But for the most part, I guess there's a Chipotle now and a Target, right? But it's like, yes, there are those businesses that are chains, but actually they're like few and far between. Like, we're talking like 1 or 2 per street, and every other business on all the streets is some sort of, New York-y business. They might be chains, but they're not those big chains that right, that are like that. But in that one area, there's an Applebee's, a Panera, and an Uno Pizzeria, all right next to each other in that one spot.
Yep, and they're all clustered by a big parking garage that people drive to and park to go to the theater and eat out.
Right, it's like this one spot that's like it's like a little suburb that's the border of Astoria and the rest of further east Queens.
So
has all this suburb shit all
against my better nature,
huddling together for safety.
But against my chorist nature, I decide to go one step further. Don't worry, I didn't order this fucking pizza. Like, do not think this is where this is going. I am not stupid. But I wonder for a brief second, the barest glimmer of hope that I decide to entertain instead of crush. What if the Uno somehow went out of business and I didn't notice? Because why would I notice?
No, it definitely is still there.
And someone bought it because I don't.
There, obviously.
Because I don't see Uno. Like, it's one of those things like a billboard where my brain just ad blocks it. I don't even think about it.
It's there.
It's like that scene in Westworld where she looks at the picture of the outside world and she's just like, doesn't look like anything at all to me. So I Google for Detroit Pizza Kitchen, and I will not link to this website because it is like every reference to this place that I can find is on a website like Pizza Marketplace that is aimed at SEO nonsense and people who are in the bad pizza business. Like someone who's like an executive at a place that invests in Sbarro's type garbage. And yeah, Detroit Uno decided to make a bunch of ghost kitchens not associated with their brand to sell Detroit style pizza. And this article had a picture of the pizza they're selling. And that does not look even remotely like a Detroit style pizza. It looks exactly like a regular ass fucking Pizzeria Uno pizza with no changes.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. Do not order Detroit Pizza Works pizza.
So what I have to say about Pizzeria Uno is that when I was young and we loved pizza, and we were.
I mean, when I was young, I would eat any pizza.
We were people from New York living in Connecticut. We had pizza. We knew what good pizza was. We knew the best pizzas in Connecticut. Which
I grew up in Detroit. We would go sit down at the Pizza Hut to eat pizza sometimes.
And a Pizzeria Uno opened in, I think, Fairfield, and it was big. It was this big place, physically. And it was new. We hadn't seen it before. We didn't realize it was a chain. We thought it was, if it was a chain, it felt like it was the first one. Sort of like when Blockbuster first showed up. It was around that same time, I think. Where it's like this big new video store opened up. We didn't realize it was a chain yet. It was like the only one that we had ever seen, right? Or ever heard of. So we're like, oh, a giant new pizza place. Let's go check that out. We're kind of excited, right? Like, ooh, right? And I get there, and the pizza was, even when I was a kid, and it was like, this is terrible. This is, right? Because I guess I already, even at that young single-digit age, had a taste for real New York pizza.
Yep. Now, there was a time in my life around middle school where the only thing that mattered in terms of food to me was quantity.
I think this was pre-middle school, but regardless, literally, can you imagine a kid eating a pizza and being like, ew, I don't want this.
Yep. Now,
a kid who likes pizza and ate pizza from other places, I didn't start hating pizza altogether or anything.
Like if I was forced to stack rank restaurants, there are restaurants where I would eat at the Uno before I would eat at them, but you're already at the bottom of the barrel next to like Burger King and Jack in the Box.
Right, yeah. But so since that time, single digit age last millennium, I have managed to, I guess it wasn't that hard, but I have never eaten at an Uno's Pizzeria since then, and I have no plans to the rest of my days.
So yeah, you got any news?
Yeah, we got camera-related news and thing of the day. So Nikon's, I guess, semi-surprised everyone except for all of the people in, who do camera reviews, because they all got preview units. They announced this new camera called the Nikon ZF, right?
Ooh.
So this came out of nowhere, basically, at least as far as I could tell. It is something that people kind of wanted because there was a previous camera, the Nikon ZFC. And what the ZFC was sort of a unique camera in that the shape of the camera physically, the interface of it, if you didn't get close to it, you'd think it was an old film SLR camera with the dials on it and everything, right? Only slightly smaller and obviously digital.
Yeah.
But it had an APS-C size sensor, which if you didn't know, is bigger than a Micro Four Thirds sensor, but smaller than a, quote, full frame sensor. Full frame is basically the size of a frame on a 35 millimeter film negative, right? And so, that was a cool camera, the Nikon ZFC, but it wasn't, that inspiring for people to go get it because the quality of the actual, photos was decent. It was cool looking, good, right interface, right shape, but it was kind of plasticky, right? It was like, nobody, it's like if you're making a camera in that shape of old school controls, you're appealing to people who care about photos. So putting technology in it that is not somewhat high end makes those people go, well, I like the shape, but right? So, sort of dominating that space, there's surprisingly few higher end digital cameras that have an old school user interface, right? Basically, Fuji makes those, right? And they like the X100 that I have is like an old rangefinder.
Yeah.
The X Pro 3 is discontinued. We're waiting for an X Pro 4, which I might buy if they ever make one. Then there's the XT whatevers, right? Those are sort of the same. They look like old school SLRs. And then, of course, there's the $10,000 Leica cameras, which look
Yeah.
old school rangefinders. And that's pretty much it. That's it. That's the list of cameras that are modern digital cameras but are in the shape of an old camera. All the other digital cameras are basically the shape of a digital camera.
Yep.
Right? Which, why are digital cameras that shape? Is that the best shape a camera can be? Right? That's sort of the question that's being challenged.
Well,
right?
remember when there's a bunch of cameras that were basically just a lens, like a little sensor on it.
Those are video cameras.
Yeah.
Those aren't. You can't use that for photography, really, right? You need some sort of either optical or digital viewfinder to do, and some sort of interface. When you have a camera that's just a box, it's because you're controlling it from far away.
But it might be box with that little grippy on the right side is like one of those UX designs, kind of like how
still all to do photography where you're walking around, you need all the controls on the thing.
Yep.
You can't. That's not what those are for. Anyway, those are for video and film and things of that nature. I mean, not that these cameras don't do video. They all do because they're digital cameras.
Yep.
So the Nikon ZF, they come out and they're like, all right, here it is. It's like the Nikon ZFC, only bigger with the 35 millimeter sensor, right? And fancier and etc. And it's only $2,000. Now, $2,000 is a lot of money in the scheme of things. That's like a computer.
Yeah.
Right? But if you compare, right, that to basically the competition, the Fuji X-T5 is $1,700, and this has a bigger sensor than that, right? The Nikon Z6 II, right, which is basically the equivalent. Nikon has a whole. They do the thing where they have like the same camera and they go mega tie, mega T, right? With slightly better upgrades. So it's like there's the Z9, the Z8, the Z7, the Z6, the Z5. And right, and they're all slightly better. Basically, as the number goes down, the camera gets slightly worse and slightly cheaper. The ZF is basically the same as the Z6 II, only a little bit better than that, actually. But it's the same price as the Z6 II, and it has in my opinion, I'd rather have the old school control shape than the digital camera shape. So
yep.
It's like a really good value.
Yeah, $2,000 with no lens, and the two default lens options don't look too bad based on my skim of these specs.
I think you would take the 40 millimeter 1.2.
I feel like that's the one I would take if I was going to get this camera.
That's the one that goes with it, right? So it's like there isn't really like a competitor for this camera, right? It's like if you want the full frame sensor, well, Fuji doesn't have that. Fuji does either smaller sensors, APS-C, or Fuji does big sensor, medium format. They're sort of not trying to compete with the.
I like how medium format is the same effective scale as medium tank when you talk about tanks.
Exactly, because there's large format.
Yeah,
and then, right.
I mean, there's mega tank.
Yeah, you can get a camera that takes photos that are just at 8.5 by 11, like boom, paper size. You can do bigger than that too, right? Anyway, but basically anything bigger than medium format is just called large format.
Yeah.
Even though there's many, but regardless, quote full frame is 35 millimeter, right? Which is whoever came up with deciding to call that full is like a marketing genius, because they basically by using the word full, in every photographer's mind, they've made anything smaller than that feel inferior.
The same thing happened. I read
anything bigger than that feel excessive.
I read an essay years ago that made an argument. It was talking about marketing, and it was talking about how calling it a high definition HD, regardless of 720, 1080, like all that nonsense, that was the death knell to the previous generation of all displays, regardless of if the technology actually looked better yet.
Yeah, I mean, Apple ran out of words. They're already at Ultra Apple Watches.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. We don't have words bigger than that. We're done.
Final. We got to just release the final watch, final format.
The point is, if you want a camera,
fatal frame,
this sensor size, right? There are many to choose from. If you want a digital camera with the sensor size, many to choose from. But if you want one with this sensor size, that is an old school shape with the dials and whatever. The only options are this, which is SLR shaped, and the Leica, which is rangefinder shaped. So if you're going to narrow it to SLR shaped, this is a unique camera, right? There is no existing camera that combines those elements together other than this.
Man, I'm looking up at staring at me on my desk is my ancient DX1 that I'm still using.
So it's like I'm sort of waiting, like, you know, the X100, which is the Fuji rangefinder with the smaller sensor, right? Of all the cameras I have, I use that camera more than all the others combined, right? But you can't even get. They have the X100V, which came out a while ago, which is such a hot item right now. Like I bought the X100F before they were hot, right? It's like the X100V is so hot you can't get them.
Yeah,
people are, you know, you could probably sell you could probably sell one for more than it costs you to buy it right now because it's so hot. And it's like, you know, I use that camera the most, but it's getting a little long in the tooth, right? It's not getting the updates. It doesn't have the USB-C. It doesn't work with the new Fuji app. It, you know, there's features on the newer ones that I kind of actually would use. So it's like, you know, I'm waiting, but then this camera comes along and it's like, hey, you sure you want to keep waiting? And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. Maybe I think what I'm going to do is I'll wait, you know, for this to actually show up at the camera store in a couple months rather than throw $2,000 on a purchase of something I can't touch, right?
I feel like that's a good idea.
And I'll go play with one for free and see what the deal is, right? But yeah, this is an interesting surprise camera out of nowhere. So it's worth noting, even to not camera people, to be like, you know.
Yeah. So in some other news, and we won't dwell on these because both of these could be like their own show, and you should just go to the real news media to learn about what happened. So first, the writers' strike is over. The WGA has voted to lift the strike order. The strike lasted 148 days, and by all accounts,
imagine not getting paid for 148 days.
Yep.
Would you be able to make it?
I would, but
and how much suffering would that be? And would you go through that suffering? Right? Is it worth it? And it's like, well, I got the right outcome.
I mean,
so
you know, think
probably.
about that. As young kids often don't remember and don't pay attention in middle school, the only reason we have weekends off is because a whole bunch of union people basically suffered getting attacked and murdered by Pinkertons for a long time.
So it's like you had to be thankful to the people and respectful, right? And you know, glory to them that they have, you know, they suffered greatly to bring about this good end, but also think about yourself. It's like you want to have good ends and change the world. It's like you had to be ready to do that kind of suffering, right?
Yep.
So
you can read the details, but
the time comes.
The key gains are really important because what's fascinating is the last time there was a strike in this space, it sort of resolved as a compromise where nobody was super happy, but it was like a slight step forward. All the writers I see talking about this are saying this is like transformative. It was a complete and total victory, which is not the rhetoric I expected. But
you don't see that too often. Usually you see a pretty big compromise.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, UAW, remember, the auto workers, one of their demands is 4-day work week. So
yeah, that's right.
So key points.
Go.
The writers' rooms have minimum sizes now and like minimum staffing levels, payment terms for screenwriters, guaranteed second looks and follow-ups, all the stuff that makes sure writers actually get paid, which was not happening. Huge limitations on where and how AI can be used in the process at any point. Companies basically can't use anyone's writing output for fucking anything without their explicit written approval. There's statutory rules around where and how they could even give that approval. There's it's almost all the talking points here are around restrictions on how AI can be used.
Yep. My only concern, right, is that, you know, this guarantees basically that if someone is going to produce some Hollywood media, right, that is written and requires writing, you know, and they're going to use union labor, which they are, because otherwise all the other unions aren't, right? You're not going to work out, right? Yeah, then those writers will be compensated fairly, right? But I think you and I both know that in the future, right, even without the AI help,
I think in our lifetime there will be entire Hollywood movies made without a single human being involved except
I'm just saying,
hitting a button.
If they don't use the AIs or the MLs, right? I really don't like saying AI, right?
Yeah.
Even if they don't use machine learning tools to replace writers, they are going to drastically reduce the amount of written content produced, and they're going to continue to increase their focus on the non-written content.
Yep.
Right. And if you look at television, I think especially, right? The NFL is the only thing keeping cable alive.
Yep. And for those of you who didn't read between the lines,
sports in general,
non-written content is code for sports and reality TV.
Except for pro wrestling is written.
Oh yeah.
But not other sports, right? And but yeah, it's like you look around and it's like a lot of the stuff that's carrying the load, especially television, is not written.
Well, because the underlying reasons for strikes like this,
writers, it's like, I think, I wonder, it's like the writers who are still going to be working are going to be treated properly, right? With this new deal, I wonder how many writers won't be able to find work.
That is the same concern that comes up.
Money going out to writers. They just have less jobs now. They just decrease the...
So one, that is the right wing's primary talking point against unions, that it causes that outcome.
Yeah.
But two, it is a real concern, but they're concerned for fake reasons, of course. Like, don't fuck the right wing. But
obviously,
that is how all of labor is gone. Look at how labor is going now. There are jobs that still pay a lot and are highly skilled and require people like us to do this kind of work. There aren't that many of them. And most people, there's no jobs for them. And if they can even find a job, it pays fucking nothing. And all unions are doing is protecting the tiniest bastions of what they can protect of a world where capitalism doesn't literally destroy everything.
Yep.
At some point, it all has to give, but that's a topic for another day. This was a huge victory, and hopefully this will force the rest of the strike to resolve on good terms. This is ammo in the UAW's pocket that maybe they should fight just as hard and go just as hard. And I encourage any of you out there, if you work at a place that's not unionized, sniff around and see if you can unionize. Like, unions are at a height of power right now, because even if the industry wants to go entirely to unscripted content to avoid the consequences of this strike, the one movie that gets made with real writers will be the only good movie that year eventually. Like,
I mean, if you look, there are still, right, like this whole 2023 was all what the people went nuts for the Barbenheimer, neither of which I saw or cared to see.
We're going to go see Oppenheimer on Friday, I think, because it's still in theaters.
Written, right? Those are written. So
do you want every show to be Oh My Balls or Jackass? And even Jackass had a script.
I mean, I just, I don't really watch TV, period, written or unwritten. So
nope. And in some other news, this is actually breaking news today. I think the dateline is like a few hours ago. Basically, New York City passed a law and a bunch of requirements that gig workers doing deliveries had to be paid the same fucking New York minimum wage and couldn't be paid less.
The council passed that law a while ago.
Yep, and there were huge lawsuits, and basically Grubhub, Uber, and DoorDash fought with terrifying amounts of money to block this.
Instacart wasn't in on that too?
Instacart was not listed in the article on CNBC that I'm looking at right now. I assume...
as evil as those are, I always feel like Instacart is the worst one.
Yeah, Instacart probably is the worst. Well, Uber might actually be the worst one,
They're
but...
real bad too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they're all bad.
I don't use...
Granted, I used Grubhub yesterday because I don't have a lot of options.
I don't use the other one.
Yep.
Grubhub is evil, but just the slightest bit less evil than the other ones. And
yep. Though I got a quote here from this article where, quote, a Grubhub spokesperson called the decision disappointing, saying in a statement that they're evaluating their next legal actions, and basically said, well, we got to change our whole platform now, and fuck all of you. Everything's going to be worse now.
All right. Good luck.
Yep. So, I bet what they're going to do is just turn the screws on the restaurants and raise their prices some terrifying amount.
Probably.
Anyway, so they all sued like crazy and did huge astroturfing and influence campaigns to try to block this. And in the end, they failed. The courts were like, nope, there is nothing wrong with this law. You're all idiots, and this is going to go into effect, and that's the end of it. Appeal to the Supreme Court if you really want to. So it's
a law like this, though, it's like, this is what it's all about, where it's like, hey, even if the company is super evil, right? It's like, when the regulations are strong enough that companies really just can't cross a certain line of evil without breaking the law.
They'll go right up to that line.
Right. Then it's like you sort of it sort of makes life easier. You don't have to like, sort of pick and choose like, is it okay for me to use this company? They're so evil. It's like even the evilest company isn't, it can only be so much evil.
Yep.
You can sort of not have to worry about that. So
Like, think in the U.S., unless you're eating...
that the person who's delivering your food is getting paid a fair amount, it's like, all right.
Yep. So it's going to rise on a schedule, and then it'll hit $19.96 per hour, which is still, from my perspective on capital and human labor, $20 an hour for a real human's difficult effort is insulting and dangerous to society. But
so not only, right, so $20 an hour times 40 hours times 52 weeks a year is only $41,000. And not only, it's like, yeah, $41,000 maybe for someone who's doing something that's like super easy and safe and chill.
No, these guys are riding e-bikes that are on the verge of exploding with bootleg batteries, sharing apartments, delivering food in New York City.
Weather, right. In all kinds of weather, snow, rain, whatever. It's like carrying shit.
They're getting hit by cars all the time. Their bikes are getting stolen all the time.
Hours to your stupid ass house.
Yep.
Right. It's like that's underwater welding levels of danger. It should be at least 3 times that much money.
Yep. Now, of course, the common villain in everything we talked about today, except that really nice camera, is capitalism. And just make sure you internalize that. All right.
I mean, I'm sure Nikon is terrible for the climate with all the
probably,
and the short lifespan of their devices.
You know what they are? They are
encouraging people to constantly upgrade them.
I feel like they are more steps away from the direct evil, because they're exploiting humans several steps down the road, which is still evil, but you pick your battles. All right. Anyway. But anyway, things of the day. So back at RIT, I don't remember if it was a bear or a gorilla, because after Scott mentioned that he thought it was a bear, I think I remember a bear. But also, having gone down a deep rabbit hole of the current state of research into human cognition, I learned something about memory. And basically, so humans we don't remember details very well, except in very certain circumstances. And the going theory is that if we try to remember something, especially from a long time ago, our brain will remember specific pieces of information, and then it will go through your other memories to basically fill in all the details with what is the most plausible. So, like, you might have a memory of eating at a restaurant when you're a kid, and you'll remember a few specific things, but if you think back and recall it, your brain might insert very vivid components of that memory that are basically compiled from other memories as a best guess.
Yeah,
that is why
I'm surprised to hear you admit to this, because very often I say, "Oh, I remember this, but I'm not so sure," and you're like, "No, it's definitely." you guarantee you're so sure that you're right about things that you remember.
No, I am 100% sure that you and I used to run up that right side of that Counter-Strike map all the time. That was like a thing we would do.
Well, you didn't remember the rules to Magic the Gathering. So.
Yeah. Either that or everyone in my middle school got that one rule wrong and it didn't matter.
Either one.
Yep.
You're either wrong then or you're wrong now or both.
Yep. So anyway, we saw this video. You've probably seen a video like this too. A lot of teachers show it in school where they give you a task like, hey, here's a bunch of kids playing basketball. Count how many times the basketball gets passed. And you do it and it feels really easy. And then the teacher's like, so who saw the gorilla? And everyone in the room goes, what? And then they play the video again, and there's clearly a gorilla, like, in the...
Not even hiding, just
like
right fucking there, dancing.
Like, full
waving.
frame. It's like waving its hands. And when we saw this at RIT, we were like, there's no way. And we go back and watch the actual original video, and it's there. And it was kind of an amazing demonstration.
Yep.
Like, it worked. And never thought about it again. SciShow, 8 days ago, updated...
I thought about it maybe a couple times again.
Yeah. But SciShow uploaded a video 8 days ago, what that famous gorilla suit study didn't see. And basically, that study, the original study where people made the videos based on it, opened a whole fucking can of worms on human cognition. And there have been huge advances and major updates to science and based on the continued follow-ups from that study. And this video is a summary of all the crazy nonsense we have learned since then about why we don't see the gorilla. There's a lot to unpack, and this is an 8-minute summary of some really interesting things about humans. So what do you got?
So since I did a photo news, I'll do a photo thing of the day. I found this YouTube channel, because every thing of the day is a YouTube channel these days. There's this guy named Paulie B. How could you not love a guy named Paulie B who's in New York, right? I don't know if he's from New York, but he's living in New York, at least, for as far as I can tell from his YouTube channel. And there's YouTube. If you haven't searched for photo stuff on YouTube, YouTube has way too much photo stuff because cameras are how you make YouTubes. So, of course, camera people are all over YouTube, right? But yeah, once YouTube knows you want to watch photo related content, you will be buried.
Yeah.
Most of that content, as I discussed in the news, is about camera equipment, right? Camera people discussing camera equipment. Not all of it's bad content, but like when I said, oh yeah, all the camera review people got Nikon ZF preview models, right? And those are the only people who've had them, right? Or because it's not out yet.
Yep.
Go look on YouTube and see how many people have Nikon ZFs in their video that they're holding them.
Yeah.
It's a lot, right? There are so many people who only just like review camera shit on YouTube.
And it's the same thing as you try to look for tech stuff, and it's just people talking about computer equipment and nothing about what to use that equipment for.
Exactly. And Paulie B, right, is the rare example of someone who's actually talking about, it's like he might ask someone once, like, hey, what camera you got there? And then that's the end of it, right? He's not judging them. He's not reviewing them. It's like they are talking about, the art of taking photos. Mostly he's doing street photos, but, he's interviewing people. He does a show Walkie Talkie where basically one person is a street photographer who's, a professional, and they walk around taking photos, and he just walks with them and talks to them.
That's a real good format right there.
And shows you what their work looks like. And it's like, it's like, this is the real content if you're, an artist or creative person, right? Where it's not about the equipment or the technique so much or the technology. It's like, it's about the people, the creative people you can learn from them and what they're doing, right? And there are not enough YouTube channels like this one. And I wish that the algorithm that, if it was not capitalist, right, and about trying to sell things, it would rank this kind of content higher, right, than, the other kind. But it doesn't. So you have to find it from a thing of the day.
Yep.
So now you did.
In the meta moment, the GeekNights Book Club book, which we will do the show on a week or two after the upcoming Murderbot book comes out, because I am now a third of the way through the 5th Murderbot.
Let me just check the date on that while you're talking.
Yep. But the Murderbot Diaries, that is the book club book. We're going to talk about all of the Murderbot Diaries that have been released hitherto when we do the show. And if you're a listener of this podcast, I am hard-pressed to think of the person who likes Geek Nights, but would not at least enjoy some aspect of the Murderbot Diaries.
All right, here you go. Book 7 comes out November 14th. It follows the events in Network Effect, which is book 1, 2, 3, 5.
Yep. That's the one with all the well, anyway, no spoilers. I'm reading that one right now.
Yeah, so immediately following book 5 is book 7. So if you didn't know, the books don't come in chronological order. Book 6 doesn't happen, or whatever. You get the idea.
I'm reading them in publication order because I'm not going to play that game.
I also read them in publication order, but I'm just saying, chronologically, book 6 happens, I think, before book 5, and book 7 happens immediately after book 5. I can't keep track of it.
Anyway, Murderbot Diaries, big aliens world type vibes, but possibly before it gets as dystopian as that world, but not that much before, possibly. Anyway, they're good books. I'm enjoying them. They're definitely going to do a show on them.
The Iliad, translated by Emily Wilson, is now available I'm in, I think, 16th place in the queue at the library to get a copy.
Let's just agree right now, after we do the Murderbot
I don't know how
show,
many copies they have, but if they only have one, that means I'm going to have to wait over a year. So
let's agree that after the Murderbot show, at whenever we both have a copy of the Iliad to read.
I'm just going to probably cancel my library reserve and buy it for 20 bucks.
But once we do that, we're going to pause the book club to do a book club episode on that. It doesn't count as your choice or my choice. We're just going to do it.
I figured we could, anyway.
There's no universe where I don't read that book basically as fast as possible once I sit down with a copy of it.
I think it's going to be I think it's long, though. It's not.
Yeah, I feel like I can read it pretty quick. I read that Odyssey pretty quick.
All right. Like a lamnon.
Well, that's going to be the stinger at the end of the show because that's looping in my head right now, including the video that I remember in more detail than I should. The little googly eyes on the lamb chop.
That video perfectly.
Because I remember watching that video, all I could think the whole time is that raw? I hope he washed his hands.
Yeah, so the final meta moment is that maybe next weekend, the 7th and 8th, we can attempt to launch the GeekNights website, maybe?
Exciting times.
We'll see.
Say goodbye to the Web 2.0 version of the GeekNights website.
Yeah, whatever. Web 2.0.
We're going back. Actually, I'd say the new website, we're going back to a Web 1.0 type of experience on purpose.
I mean, it doesn't look like a GeoCities website, but it's pretty much just HTML, CSS. We got rid of, I think there's maybe one JavaScript that's small, and if you turn off JavaScript, you won't even notice.
We're going back to the intent of the World Wide Web.
Yeah, so,
All right, let's get right into it, partly because we've gone a little long, which happens when we do shows in weird orders, skip episodes recently. Anyway, we went to a concert, and...
So I knew the concert was coming and bought tickets way in advance.
Yep.
Right? Like the day they went on sale, basically.
And when you did that, at the time, I had a tentative work trip where there was a chance I was going to be in like Asia for 3 weeks. So I wasn't sure if I could go, and there's a good chance I couldn't. So I just filed it away as I'll get tickets if it's not sold out when I know if I have to go on this work trip. And then I just immediately forgot.
So the day before the concert, I just go and I look and I'm like, oh, why is this show not sold out? And I'm just like, hey, anyone, I'm going to the show tomorrow.
Yep.
It's not sold out. If anyone else wants to go, right?
Yep.
Hey.
Yep. So our friend Kat went with another friend, Carl. And while we were doing Geek Nights, because I was thinking about this, while we're wrapping up the show, you might have seen me get a little distracted because I go and I start poking around at Ticketmaster like, let's see what kind of tickets I can get. And I see a scattered seats in the upper mezzanines that aren't sold, and I see 4 seats in the orchestra pit right fucking next to the stage that are not sold. So I click on the cheap seats.
I think I never even clicked on those because I would never click on those.
I didn't click on those first. I clicked on the cheap seats, and they were like $80. And then I thought, and for a second, so I thought, okay, I can get some tickets. And then I thought, how much would it be to get the crazy ticket? I'm expecting to see some stupid number. So I click on the mezzanine, and it says $180, which $100 is a lot more, but that is like upgrading from shit coach to regular coach is more than that on an airline for one flight.
Yeah. It's like hockey games that's like the price of the best hockey game is $180 and the non-playoff, right?
Yep.
At least at the Madison Square Garden. If you go somewhere else, that'll be several hockey games.
So if you watch the Geek Nights episode from a few nights ago, you will see me ignore Scott for 90 seconds while I frantically buy 2 of those tickets before they disappear because that seemed...
It's like I paid $100 and just change, right, to get pretty close to the front of the first mezzanine because Janelle
Monáe was maybe 14 feet away from us and came into our came down next to us to shake hands with a bunch of people. It was
if I would have known, it's I just didn't look closely because it's just I just I'll buy the reasonable ticket, right?
Yep.
I'll just click on a reasonable area, buy a ticket, who cares? I didn't even think to explore, but of course after you said you got the close-up seats, I'm like, what the fuck? And I looked, the price range was just $80 to $180. I'm like, that is a fucking narrow range for Radio City Music Hall. Usually you expect a range of $40 to $500 to $500.
The 2 times in my life I have had tickets with seats in what I would consider the extremely good, like ridiculous, you would never sit here normally plays 3 times. Once we sat front row at a playoff Red Wings game when I was a kid because my dad got some tickets. Once we were in the, I think, 2nd row or 3rd row when Patrick Stewart's Macbeth, like that crazy one, like we saw that. That was a lot of money, but we saw that. And 3rd was this concert.
I mean, I've been in luxury boxes, I guess, that I didn't pay for.
Yeah.
That's not front row, but that's the same level of,
Yeah, but I guess
right?
even then, it was a concert, so I expected these seats to be great, but I also didn't expect it to be like that much different from sitting somewhere else, but having actually been that close.
Up in the mezzanine, it was perfectly fantastic,
Yep.
right? And,
But like it was an experience to sit that close and see every little detail of all those dancers and all that nonsense on stage. Also, the thing I learned about that orchestra pit that I'll talk about at the end because it's not relevant to the concert was kind of amazing.
So, I mean, Janelle Monáe is someone I've been a fan of since at least since I lived in Beacon.
Yep.
Right? But hasn't released, albums that frequently. There was like a big gap of I want to say a few years.
Well, like Dirty Computer was like what, 2017, 2018? Like it was it was pre-COVID.
Something like that. I don't remember the exact.
There it is,
year.
2018, Dirty Computer.
Right. And so then, Age of Pleasure was this year. So that's a 4 or 5 year gap between albums, right? But she was doing other things like acting and, still, business, right? And it's one of those people where it's like, I'm a fan of them, right? They're crazy awesome and talented and, I like everything about them, but I'm not focused on them, right?
Yeah.
I'm not number one fan, obsessed with them, right? The way people are obsessed with Taylor Swift.
I mean, I don't think I'm like that with
or the Beatles or
I don't think I'm like that with literally anything or anyone.
I guess not. But it's just one of the artists that I greatly enjoy and I recognize as a unique and amazing, talented person. And it's oh, why wouldn't I go see them? Oh, look at that.
Especially because we both kind of broke the seal on.
If I'm not going to get another chance, if you don't release another album and go on tour again for 5 years. It's
Plus, after 3 years of isolation and starting to come back out of that,
I think we'll get more chances. She's not.
Oh, yeah. But I think we both started prioritizing experiences like that. Like, that is the most important thing, is to experience things. And we both started going to a bunch of concerts recently. And yeah, live music is just amazing. Like, go to concerts, go see live music, even if it's low-tier local stuff.
Yeah, but, so it's but the question is, I'm like, why didn't this sell out? She is insanely popular.
And it was a crazy good show.
Right. I'm like, why is this not sold out? And the only thing that I can think is the only explanation is either A, she's less popular than I thought, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
I don't think so.
It's everyone I know knows who that is.
Yep.
Or B, is it that a lot of people have the same attitude that I have, where it's they're not so focused on her that they're number one fans, noticing that she's on tour, following her. Or there's a third theory.
I have two. There's a fourth theory possibly too. Let's see what your third one is.
My third theory is that she's also got to stop in Brooklyn, which divided up the New York crowd.
Oh yeah, the girl who was sitting with us in the pit wanted to go see her in Brooklyn, and it was sold out, and got Radio City instead. And you know what? So the people we hung out with in the pit also bought those tickets right before for nothing, and they were also like, I can't believe we got these seats. But she was a super fan, and she was losing her shit.
So there are people who are super fans,
but she got the ticket for $180.
I know, right? It's
only because Brooklyn was sold out, and she the day before, the same day I bought the ticket.
People feel like the Brooklyn show is going to be better, but actually, I'd rather go. Radio City is, it's big. If people don't know, Radio City Music Hall is indoors. It's not an arena, but it is big. It has a lot of seats. It is bigger probably than the Opera House at Met. I'm pretty sure, right? At least it feels bigger.
According to Wikipedia, Radio City's 4-tiered auditorium was the world's largest auditorium when it was opened.
Yeah, it's an auditorium, right? But it's, whereas the Brooklyn show was at Barclays, right?
I don't know.
I
assume so, but I don't actually know. I don't have it up.
That's an arena, right? I would much rather go to even a very large auditorium than even a small arena, right, for a musical performance.
Also, Radio City's capacity is 100,000 people.
Yeah, it's big.
And it's 90
You don't
years
really
old.
feel far away, even if you're far away, because it's the shape of the place, right?
Yeah. And it was revolutionary in a bunch of ways that would be a distraction from the rest of the show. But while we were there, because of the weird thing I learned about the orchestra pit after looking down that crack and then looking on Wikipedia and then reading a bunch of stuff, Radio City was like one of the most advanced auditoriums in the world when it was built. And it is still
movies there.
Yeah, it is still one of the best designed auditoriums in the world today.
Yeah, I mean, who's making a new big auditorium today?
Yeah.
To compete with it, right? You could beat it easily with modern technology, but who is? Anyway, so go to the show, and obviously my expectation for the show is high, right? Because of the talent of the person, and I have basically zero doubt of being disappointed, like none whatsoever.
Yep.
Right. I know that basically it's like, it's going to be lit. I know it's going to be, right? And yet the rarest thing that could possibly happen is me. I almost never set a high expectation, right? I almost always set a low expectation. I set a high one because I was so confident, right? And yet it was exceeded.
It was one of the best musical acts I've ever seen in person in my life. Now, granted, I haven't been to a huge number of concerts, let alone like the toppest tier ones, but it was a fucking show. And there's so much going on in this show. The fact, like, it was the staging almost evoked like the history of music in terms of old reviews and the way the stage was set up with the staircase down the middle. It was super classy. It crossed a variety of different genres, which the album does too. The stage setting was fantastic.
Well,
the choreography was
like
great.
It was like an amphitheater, but it was facing at us, and we're in an auditorium facing at them. So it's like the performers, are they there to see us? Right?
Yep.
As much as we are there to see them, right? There's just all these layers of meaning going on. And it's like, in terms of the types of performances, right?
Yep.
It's like several, so many genres were crossed. She raps, she's singing.
Yep.
The jazz
we got
ones,
some we got some old school R&B style songs. We've got some
You got the sexy ones, you got the chill ones. It's like every single kind of everything is going on there, right? Different types of dancing, different genres of dancing. I knew there'd be a live band, right? They come with a live horn section in there.
Yep, and but the horn section, this was an advanced horn section. This was 2 saxophones, a trumpet, trombone, and the trumpet wasn't actually a trumpet.
I thought it was a trombone, a trumpet, and a sax.
So the when I said trumpet, that's what I was about to get to. That was not actually a regular trumpet. That looked that was either a flugelhorn or a flugelhorn adjacent device. There's a bunch of things that are like trumpets that are not actually trumpets. I really like playing flugelhorns and horns like them. They have a very different timbre. They feel very different to play. They're a different kind of instrument. They're a more sophisticated instrument, shall we say, than a trumpet. They're more like a cornet. They were also very good at their music, those players.
Yeah,
I
could say this. When you go to, there's, a lot of people joke that you go to like a metal show or a rock show and like you can't really hear the bass guitar.
Yeah.
Is that right? It's like, I think the bass guitar at this show, right? Also because of, the disco soul influence in a lot of the music. I heard it more than I heard it at any show in my life.
So the sound mixing was...
And the person who was playing the bass was sick AF.
The sound mixing, and I think part of this was that it was Radio City, was phenomenal in that you could, if you focused on any instrument on stage, you could hear it perfectly clearly at any point.
There were some sounds that were just like recordings, but they may have been, I don't know if they were coming from literally just, a track playing, or just the keyboard was doing it, right?
Yep. Well, that keyboard,
it wasn't like 100% live. It was like a 90%.
That keyboardist up there in that dress, she had a rack of like 8 keyboards that she was playing all of them simultaneously.
Such a wide variety of music. You're not getting it done with one. Right?
Yep. But also the choreography stood out as being both extremely tight and well choreographed, but also very loose and fluid and improvisational on purpose. And that stood out compared to how a lot of backup dancers work in this typical kind of choreographed stage show.
Yep. It wasn't like a K-pop show where it was like everyone was in perfect sync all the time.
Yep.
But it also wasn't like a mess of people just doing whatever. It's like they were doing the same dance together. They wouldn't win an award at the Olympics for synchronized swimming, right? But they all had, the feel and emotion in their dancing was, stronger.
Well, the performance, I think, was better for it because if the theme of Age of Pleasure was around safe spaces to explore the unlimited resource of shared pleasure that humans have, which is kind of the theme of the album. The album's really worth a listen. And if the concert was exploring that theme, everybody on stage looked like they were having a fun time.
Yeah, I think everyone in the crowd is having a fun time.
Yeah.
The other thing I really appreciated is that I think, Led Zeppelin is a good example of a band which intentionally, right? I think they've said as much. When they perform live, they wanted to sound like the album, right?
Yep.
Oh, only live, obviously, right? It's like they didn't, they wanted to basically play what it is that you heard at home the way you heard it at home, right? And I guess that's a certain kind of philosophy, right? It's like, whatever.
Yep.
My philosophy is that if I'm going to a live show on purpose, right? It's like I can listen to the album at home. And it's like, yes, those are familiar songs. There's pleasure in hearing and enjoying the familiar songs, right? If you play some, anytime a band tries to play their new song that no one knows, the crowd is not as excited as when you play the hit song. That's true for every musician ever.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, yes, play your hit songs, but if it sounds exactly like the album, I feel like, why am I here? Right?
Yep.
I love to hear a different rendition, a different take, a different ad lib, a different solo, at least do something to mix it up, right? In some way, shape, or form that's not the same, right? As just the album. And that's exactly what we got. Pretty much every single fucking song was, you could tell it was the song.
Yep.
It was this, the structure was usually intact, the same verse, chorus pattern, the same lyrics, mostly, right? It was the same fucking songs. Every single different song that up there was a different rendition, a different, mix, a different something.
Yep.
Right? Sometimes a different genre entirely, right? But the same song, you knew the song, that was it. It was from her album, but doesn't sound like the album. So you're paying and getting something, for your money, right? You're not something that you could have, stayed home and listened to on Spotify, unless they release, I guess, a DVD.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to just listen to that rendition by itself because it was the whole experience of the whole show together and being in the middle of it. Like if I listen to the album, I want to listen to the album.
Right. There are a lot of shows, I'd say, where you might even be better off just watching a video of the concert and not, on a good stereo, obviously, and not going. This one was one of those ones where, nope, being there was not the same.
Especially being in the pit because it was just a dance party. Like everyone was just dancing.
Everyone was dancing the mezzanine.
Yeah.
Mezzanine was also a dance party.
Well, there was a moment where when they turned on, when she had to turn on all the lights, do the thing. I turned around and it almost was like shocking to remember that there's a whole fucking auditorium behind us. Like I was actually kind of lost in the concert, which we're old and jaded and have seen a lot of things. It is very rare that I get lost in a performance of something to that degree.
I could see all the people because I was in the mezzanines.
Yep.
But yeah, it was just for usually when there's chairs, right? Just the presence of chairs, even though people can stand up, right? It's like, first of all, we're old. I did sit down sometimes.
I sat down for a moment because, the last time I stood for an entire concert was Pair of Stellar, and I was leaning on a balcony the whole time.
To sit down, right? Especially, she changed clothes like way more times than I thought she would.
Oh yeah, that was Cher level of professional costume change nonsense, which I am always here for.
Oh yeah, awesome costumes too.
Oh yeah,
big hats. Anyway, we love a big hat. But yeah, despite the presence of chairs, which are like the greatest hindrance to people standing up and getting excited, it's like that didn't fucking stop anyone. And maybe that is why people are going to the Barclays show, because I imagine in the arena there will be just standing GA in front.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess.
Because I also imagine that Radio City, like they can't just remove those chairs.
I don't know, but Yeah. But yeah, no, you can't remove the chairs at Radio City.
Yep.
Everything there is chairs. It's an auditorium. So
one last thing that was noteworthy in this, because we got to talk about encores, the history of encores.
Oh yeah.
Because in the oldest times, the encore was like a surprise and it wasn't expected. Like an encore would be a surprise and people would be like, "Oh fuck, the band's going to play another song." But then it became almost a ritual where everyone knows the encore is coming and the band will pretend to leave the stage and then they'll come back. And that happened in this concert. But then after that first false encore,
right. So it was an encore, right? The usual shtick where it's like they act like the show's over, then they come back out, right?
Yep.
And then it's like that's the way I basically have gotten to the point of so many shows.
Until the house lights come on, the concert's still going. That's the rule.
The house light, first of all, I know just from because, we always think about meta stuff because that's how we think, right? Is that like the way deals work at venues is like the contracts almost always say 11 o'clock, you're done, right?
Yeah.
That's it, right? We've got people working here at the concessions and the merch booth and the janitors. You got to be done at 11. Otherwise, in your contract, that you can't go past 11. Almost always, that's the time, right? In the U.S. So I'm looking at the clock. It's like 10:59, and after that encore, the confetti guns go off.
Yep.
Right? And the house lights start to turn on, and they start playing like recorded music.
This is the first time in my entire life I got tricked and didn't expect an encore. Like that is an accomplishment.
Before and after a concert, they're always just playing recorded music, right? That someone picked out for however method, right? The recorded music comes on, which is the go home music. The house lights are on.
Like I stood up and put my hoodie on and took my earplugs out.
Feet were in the aisle and my back was towards the stage.
Yep. I had taken my second earplug out.
Other people had already gone into the lobby.
Now, what then transpired was the best encore I've ever seen in my life. It went harder than you can imagine. It's hard to describe, but
I'm pretty sure when she came out, she said something like "fuck my contract."
Yeah,
right. I'm pretty sure she got in trouble.
Yeah,
to pay a fine or something.
But it went harder than like I find a video of it or something. It was quite an encore, and I just left my etymotics out for that. I just let my ears accept it.
Earplugs were necessary at this show.
I took my earplugs out. I left them out when the second encore started. And then I didn't regret that. And I'll accept whatever minor damage I took from that final.
I probably took more damage watching RR in the no earplugs the whole for 3 hours.
So. I got to go back to my old rule of I always bring my etymotics with me everywhere just in case.
Yeah. So if you want to go to this tour,
go to it.
It is not over. It's Brooklyn is tonight.
Yep. I think that one was sold out. They're going to be in Atlanta, Birmingham, Nashville.
Mostly they're going down south, Texas, California, Arizona, Georgia, New Orleans. If it's not sold out near you, it's like, until the middle of October. You should go to this show.
You absolutely should. Problem is now I just want to do nothing but go to shows. I see why there are people who just go to shows, and that's kind of their whole hobby.
I've been going to a lot of shows.
As have we. We're just going to different shows. This is where we converged, because you don't care about that electro swing stuff I'm into.
No, I don't need to go to electro swing show.